will now call Honorable Abdul Razak Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, the complete name is Shakil Ahmed Yusuf Abdul Razak Mohammed. I do have all those names, and thank you for reminding the House of this and those watching us tonight. I have listened with a lot of interest to the Honorable Minister who spoke just before me. And I was waiting for him to be able to rebut the arguments of Honorable Asiya Waden. Now, if you want a recipe to have energy drainage, listen to him. Because he has drained my energy, because I have been so patiently waiting for the arguments for him to put forward. Those are the arguments in rebuttal. Honorable Asiya Waden has described so well what are the ingredients to have failure in the objective of this ministry. He has not been able to achieve what he said he would achieve. The 60% or so is a far cry, but he's only been going in reverse gear. But still, not only is he going in reverse gear as far as objectives Honorable Asiya Waden has described, but he has been unable to even respond to the very constructive criticisms of Honorable Asiya Waden. But then again, once again, I see this ability of ministers on the other side to systematically, as we say in Creole, passe d'Iber, over the person or personnage of the Honorable Prime Minister. Fair enough, if it is a mantra that they have to recite, this is their choice, which I do not necessarily partake in. But if we're talking about the Honorable Prime Minister, let me just talk about the ability of the Honorable Prime Minister to impress. You see, once upon a time, if I'm not mistaken, the port of this country is under the responsibility of the Honorable Prime Minister. The port, the entry of all our goods using the sea route, the port, the sea route for exports of our goods, the central névralgique of our economy, the port, under the responsibility of the Honorable Prime Minister. How efficient is that port? Depends upon the ability of the minister responsible to run the show as regards what is under his ministry. Back in 2022, Honorable Xavier Duval, who was then leader of the opposition, and it is no secret for anyone that Honorable Lejonga has not been very sympathetic, politically at least, for Honorable Xavier Duval. But then again, all of a sudden, for political reasons, he seems to be changing his tune. But then again, hasn't he in the past changed his tune? Let us not forget how our good friend, the Honorable Minister, Lodjo Lejonga, has been sitting next to our side back in 2014, when he was then almost cuddling the lion. And today, he talks about another language. Fair enough. Political hypocrisy is something that exists, but I also do not partake in that type of food.
Stop
oh,
it,
yes.
Stop it.
Oh, yes. But then again, the habit of the Honorable Minister...
Address the House. Address the Speaker.
I am.
Don't respond to whatever he said. I told him to stop with that. Continue your speech.
So I'm responding to what he said in his speech, not to what he's saying now. In his speech, he was, as I said, trying to show us how great the Prime Minister, as the Minister of this country, is. The youth admire the Prime Minister, he says. I wonder where he gets that from. Sitting in an ivory tower. But then, let's not forget, in 2022, when question was put by the then leader of the opposition on the very bad situation of our port, falling down in ranking in the World Bank report of 2022. What did the then Prime Minister say? He didn't agree. He thought things were great, he would invest, and I also see that in his answer he said the government will continue to invest massively in the port infrastructure. But then, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. What did the Honorable Prime Minister Pravin Kumar Jagnnath do? as far as those promises to invest in the port. Let those youngsters that this honorable minister believe admire the Prime Minister. Let those youngsters, let this population listen to what the record of this actual Prime Minister is as far as the port is concerned. Instead of doing good, instead of improving the performance of the port, we see in the index of 2023 of the World Bank, the port has once again fared extremely bad. Worse than in 2021, worse than in 2023, worse still, 369th on 405 ports. That is the performance of the Honorable Prime Minister. And the young admire him. Can we admire someone that's dropping in ranks as far as the port is concerned? How do we do that? How does he do that? Can we admire a Prime Minister who has the responsibility of the port in his portfolio, but under his watch, Réunion Island is doing better. Madagascar is improving and doing better. Como is doing better. South Africa is doing better. Seychelles is doing better. Let's admire the Prime Minister. The youth admire the Prime Minister, he says. But then again, maybe they are living in a parallel world, only believing what they were saying. But then again, if they want to live that parallel world, let them be. But I still do not understand his logic. You see, recently I was watching the news, the international news, and seeing the G7 country meeting at the moment in Italy.
Honorable Member,
Yes?
let me read what I read as announcement. Regarding rules of debate, I wish to draw the attention of honorable members to Standing Order 39.1, which provides that the member, if called upon, shall address his or her observation to the chair. Furthermore, this principle is observed in the House of Commons as highlighted in Erskine May. I quote, members must address the Speaker and not direct their speeches solely to one part of the House or to any party of either side of the House. I rely upon your cooperation.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that I will follow your ruling à la lettre. And it will be a pleasure to look at you and to address you, sir.
It's not a question of a pleasure or no pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
It's
mine.
I don't mind. I have the right to sit here. I can also walk away.
Of course.
You choose.
I would love it.
You have the right. I have given you the floor. You have the right for a speech, yes. But observe the standing order and the principle of parliamentary democracy.
I will.
And you're a seasoned politician. You've been a minister. You know Parliament maybe more than me, except that you have to apply the rules and regulations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Speaker. Now, as I was saying, I've heard the Honourable Minister, Mr. Speaker, say that basically he thinks that the Honourable Prime Minister is the reason why this country has great budgets, almost saying that, Mr. Speaker. But then I'm recently watching the international news, and the international news shows the G7 meeting in Italy. And in Italy, we have world leaders meeting on very important issues. And the way a world leader behaves, first of all, as far as I'm concerned, a world leader must trust enterprises that are on its territory. Not only must it trust enterprises that operate within its territory, it must trust enterprises that hold the name of the country. It must trust state-owned enterprises. When I saw Prime Minister of Canada flying into Italy, he was in an aircraft with the flag of Canada upon it. When I saw Prime Minister Modi lending, he had Air India landing in Italy. But recently, the Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, whom Honourable Lojangor said we, the youngsters of this country, should trust as a leader, does not even show the slightest respect, in my view, for Air Mauritius. What confidence does this Honourable Prime Minister show?
No. I will stop you there.
Why?
The character and conduct of a member of this House can only be questioned by way of motion. You stop with that gimmick, you continue a good speech on the budget. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I am not in any way challenging your ruling or challenging the conduct. I'm saying that Air Mauritius...
I have already ruled. Either you accept it or you tell me you have no speech to make. The character and conduct of any honorable member in this House can be questioned only by way of motion.
The national airline is doing so badly under this government that it has also gone into administration. It's doing so badly ever since they are in power that it has been unable to show proper management, proper direction, and proper satisfaction given to clients using that airline, Air Mauritius. What they have done to this airline, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a destruction in confidence of people in that airline. What have we not heard ever since they are in power? What have we not seen ever since they are in power as regards the way that administrators, with the help of this government, with the consent of this government, have reduced the pensions and benefits of people who are working there? What have we not heard? How airplanes were sold for peanuts, whereas now we are suffering with the type of airplanes and the service that this airline is giving to people. I respect the staff of Air Mauritius, but I have no sympathy for the government that has destroyed the airline of this country. So much so that the Prime Minister himself does not have any respect by using that airline.
Let me remind you, Honorable Shakil Mohammed, the general requirement for moderate language, good temper and moderation are the characteristics of parliamentary language. Good temper and moderation. And before you continue, I would warn you, be careful of insinuations and charges you're putting. You have to substantiate everything you're saying. Yes. This has been the principle since this morning. I'm waiting for you to cooperate and to give a very good speech.
Of course, sir. So, had I been Prime Minister, I would certainly have traveled by Air Mauritius and not chosen any other airline to go anywhere on an official visit. Had I been Prime Minister, I would have shown respect to employees of Air Mauritius.
Again, I would ask you to come to the budget. This is, you're talking of something personal and something about the Prime Minister, and the budget is left alone. The population wants to hear you about the budget. Please, come to the budget. Huh? Honorable Asiavaden, you don't have the floor. You know the rules and regulations now. You had enough time, you said, to look into the papers, huh?
I mean, you see, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am talking about the importance of our institutions, of state-owned companies. For instance, as far as the budget is concerned, it concerns also the amount of money that the MIC, for instance, under the aegis of the Bank of Mauritius and under the responsibility of the Minister of Finance, has given money to the national airline. So this is part of the budget. And as part of the budget, taxpayers' money has been given to the national airline. And in order to ensure that this money one day can be returned to the taxpayers, one should ensure that the company owned by the country, the state, can produce profits and can ensure that it gives service to its customers. That is basically the ambit of my speech, at least as far as the beginning of the speech is concerned. Now, I think it is important for me to say that it is in any corporate institution, in any body that basically a company, a small company, or big company, or listed company, The person at the top of the company should act in such a way that it shows respect for the company owned by the state. And that is why I say, le bon exemple starts from the top, not the bottom. And that is why I would have said, and I can only dream, had I been Prime Minister, I would have traveled by the national airline and not done anything else. But then again, I'm not Prime Minister. And obviously, good practice cannot happen. Now, another element which I'd like to address, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to Honorable Balgobin. Honorable Balgobin has been so good at talking about how great his ministry has been performing and how great our ranking as far as ICT is concerned all over the world. And I'm trying to think, Mr. Speaker, how does all this really translate into our everyday life? How do those figures, those rankings, really translate in the lives of Mauritians outside every day? Le commun des mortels. But before I get to that, I would like to draw his attention and remind him, Mr. Speaker, sir, when he talks about internet connectivity, has he forgotten what happened at the beginning of this year? Has he forgotten what problems Mauritius has been facing at the beginning of this year? Let me remind him, Mr. Speaker, sir. Let me remind him of what happened here on the 26th of April 2024. And the reason why this country has suffered a breakdown in our internet connectivity, cut off completely from the world for important amount of time, disruption in our financial services, disruption in our banking services, disruption for the State Bank of Mauritius, who has its data center in India, disruptions for customers using that bank, disruption for people using internet in Mauritius. All this has happened, Mr. Speaker, during his watch. He talks about T3. He talks about T3. And now he's even showing me the figure 4 on his hand. But before you get to T4, you have to be able to not tell the people of this country, T3 right now, while you talk so much about T3, in spite of T3, there was a breakdown on the 26th of April, and not the first breakdown. There have been multiple breakdowns at Mauritius Telecom. So therefore, isn't it important in order to ensure the financial viability of this country, the financial viability of our institutions, the financial sustainability for our corporates, for the students of this country, for the customers of this country, for the citizens of this country? You're talking about information communication technology. Isn't this important, therefore, for him to come to this house, Mr. Speaker, and to tell us why is it that Mauritius Telecom, when it knows that the safe cable that exists reaches expiry of its lifetime in 2027, that he hasn't said?
So you're not addressing the chair. I take the liberty of going. There is no need to have a speaker in this house.
But I'm talking through you.
You have to consider. I don't, you know better than me.
I do, yes.
If I walk out, you won't be able to speak. You have to follow the rules and etiquette.
I'm trying my best.
Okay, try. Because a good friend of mine, I'll give you, sir.
So as I was saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, talking about Honorable Minister Balgobin,
You don't have to show the hand. You know what I am preventing? I'm preventing both sides of the House from becoming too physical. I know what is happening. I know what is happening. As the Speaker, I have the responsibility. You may laugh, but I know what I'm doing.
I can assure you, sir, that I understand what you're doing. But let me at least reassure you that I never intended to be physical with Honorable Balgobin.
But then, if you don't intend that, you address the chair. Address the chair, man. Address the chair. Address the chair.
And I can assure you, Honorable Balgobin doesn't want to be physical with me. But I will physically look at you.
Talk. Speak.
Let me talk then.
Speech.
Let me talk, sir. So as I was saying, when I was interrupted as of right by yourself, that Honorable Balgobin has not told the House and the people listening to us. How come he keeps quiet about the connectivity of Mauritius with the outside world, internet? Why does he not tell the world that as far back as the day when the safe cable was installed, it has a lifetime. It is not forever. There are technical glitches on our internet connectivity. It is affecting our industry, our international reputation, finance industry, and all other people affected because of bad internet and slow internet, no stability in our internet quality, because the cable is reaching the expiry of its lifetime, 2027. And what Mauritius Telecom should have done as far back as 2019, that is called proper management. It should have put up a proper consortium to find the funds in order to start with T4, which should have been sorted out the problem of our internet connectivity. But instead of that, instead of doing that, there has been bad management at the helm of the country when it comes to Mauritius Telecom as well. Today, we are dependent upon what Mauritius Telecom and they do when they set up a consortium for the T4. Maybe the Honorable Minister should ask someone else who speaks after me to come and respond and to tell the House, tell the country, why is it they are late today with the implementation of the work for the T4? Why are they so late? Why is it that they have not started work as far back as 2019? It's going to take a good 2 to 3 years to install the T4. Why are they late about it? And also, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honorable Minister of ICT should also come clean with the fact that the safe cable, which is our lifeline in terms of internet connectivity, not enough with the T3. The T3 is only an accessory. The existing safe cable is got technical glitches precisely because it has reached its end of its lifeline, and there are technical glitches happening earlier than before. So, you see, it's so easy to come here to tell us that things are so good, things are so great. They have brought in modernity, Mr. Speaker, but modernity is also about management. Modernity and really being proud of what you've achieved is also about having managed the affairs of the country responsibly. I was going to talk about the environment, and I was so happy, Mr. Speaker, to see for a minute the Minister of the Environment, and I was saying to myself that he is back from his night job, but unfortunately he's left.
This is an insinuation. This is whatever he does in the night, this is a personal life. You don't have, Minister of Environment, yes.
And he works at night.
Whatever he does, this is private, his private work or private life. You don't have to refer. This is my ruling. It's not yes or no. It's yes. You have to accept it.
I accept.
Good. Good boy.
I'll not revert to his private life.
Good boy.
Thank you. I am a man.
Good man.
Thank you. So I shall not refer to what he does at night, but let me refer to what he does during the day, therefore. During the day...
You can refer to his ministerial responsibility. This is all.
So my difficulty is to know what who does what time. So,
You don't. I will walk out, and you will have nobody to address. The Deputy Speaker is not here. So you choose whether you want to talk or you don't want to talk.
I want to talk. You have a beautiful chair. Take it. Resume your seat. Resume your seat. So I see, sir, at least we must admit that you see this confusion about private and public issues does bring a smile with your ability to joke about it and make the atmosphere calmer. And I thank you for that, sir, because confusion as far as private and public issues is not good for the affairs of the country. But let us smile about it, and one day we'll sort it out in another forum.
That's better.
So, since we're in this forum right now, there's another thing which I have to sort out, and it is as follows. You see, I was reading a report, sir, and the report was published by Axis, and the title of the report is Mauritius Economic Deep Dive 2024. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that when the title says Mauritius Economic Deep Dive, I'm not sure that it was referring to a dive in the ocean. I was basically, most probably understood it to mean that we are diving nose first, or head first. In other words, doing very badly. And Axis is a respected institution. When I read that document, well, interesting part about that document, in the executive summary, let me refer to, I quote, rising cost of living, what it says. The average monthly household expenditure has increased by 46% since 2017. That's an interesting figure. The average monthly household expenditure, Mr. Speaker, has increased by 46% since 2017 to 41,870. And since we are a net importing country, the currency depreciation is a major factor behind the rising cost of living. What does the Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, sir, propose about that? What he proposes is, in fact, to the pensioners, an increase of 500 rupees. Not even 1,500 rupees. But what it says here, 46% rise in the cost of living. What it says about depreciation of the rupee, the USD, I quote, the USD has appreciated against the Mauritian in 8 years out of the past 10 years by a total of almost plus 46% since 2014. 46% appreciation of the US dollar vis-à-vis the rupee ever since they are in power. Before 2014, and what it says here, the experts say that, Mr. Speaker, not me. Before 2014, the rupee was stable and fluctuated between 30 and 32 rupees for 14 years. Mr. Speaker, are we not entitled to have a stable rupee? Mr. Speaker, sir, are we not as a people, as a nation, entitled to have a stable currency? And what I also fail to understand is the inability of this government to compare like with like. You have ministers on the other side who talk to you about what pension was at a time when we were in power. But the figures of the Statistics Office, the figures from the Ministry of Finance, the figures accepted by one and all, Mr. Speaker, sir, show that in this equation there is something that they try to push under the carpet. Let the people not know, Mr. Speaker, sir, that what the truth is. The truth is that they are also responsible. They are also guilty. They are also liable for the consequences of the depreciation of the rupee. Today, when I look at the budget that this Honourable Minister of Finance has come up with, one of the things that people outside talk about, the day that the Honourable Minister pronounced his speech, and as Honourable Asiya Waden, I was also not in Parliament, but I watched Parliament, I watched you, sir, I watched the Honourable Minister of Finance pronounce his speech, I watched every other minister hit the table, but no clap even, as though it was already planned, as if on a music sheet, when to stand, when to clap. Fair enough, at least they're organized somehow, somewhere, someplace. But what's interesting is that outside, people were not interested about the figures of Honourable Minister Balgobin, about the rating. People are not interested. We've heard experts all around the house talk about croissance. We've heard about GDP. Nowadays we hear about GVP, GVA we hear about. Nowadays we hear about all those inflation rate. We heard about the rate of the rupee, the rate of the US dollar, the euro. Fair enough. But what the people of this country would like to know when they heard the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, sir, was what will happen to the price of commodities, food, the cost of living. The next morning when they wake up after having heard the Minister of Finance, what would happen to the cost of living? Est-ce que la vie va être meilleur marché pour eux le lendemain d'un budget? C'est ça que la population voulait savoir, Monsieur le Président. Ce que la population voulait savoir, au fait, c'est que s'ils allaient acheter de la nourriture, que ce soit du pain, que ce soit des pâtes, que ce soit de la viande, que ce soit le poulet, les œufs, les légumes, est-ce que ce sera un meilleur marché avec l'argent qu'ils ont en poche? Est-ce que aller au cinéma va être plus cher? Est-ce que voyager par voiture, est-ce que le coût de l'essence va être meilleur marché ou est-ce qu'il n'y aura pas de changement? C'est ça que la population voulait savoir. Mais beaucoup se sont réveillés le lendemain matin et qui pensaient que l'honorable ministre des Finances, sous la supervision de l'honorable Premier ministre Pravin Kumar Jagnnath, aurait au moins écouté la plainte, la souffrance de la population, que le coût de la vie était la préoccupation principale. Monsieur le Président, cela n'a jamais été le cas. Je ne viens pas ici simplement pour critiquer. Il est de mon devoir de critiquer, mais constructivement. Mais être constructif veut aussi dire, Monsieur le Président, qu'il est nécessaire que je vienne suggérer des solutions. Quand j'étais leader de l'opposition, j'ai posé des questions et une des questions était sur le sujet de l'import parallèle. La question était sur le prix des médicaments. L'honorable ministre du Commerce est venu dire dans cette chambre que le prix des médicaments, de 80% des médicaments, avait baissé depuis l'introduction d'un autre système, un autre mécanisme l'année dernière, jusqu'à ce que je lui ai posé la question. Le fait est que la population mauricienne, vieux, jeunes, moins jeunes, aujourd'hui, sont d'accord avec ce que je vous dis, Monsieur le Président. Que Madame la ministre, représentante de ce gouvernement, quand elle dit que les prix des médicaments ont baissé, ce n'est pas juste. Parce que la vérité est que le prix des médicaments a pris l'ascenseur. Non seulement ça a pris l'ascenseur parce qu'il y a eu une roupie instable, il y a eu la dépréciation de la roupie. Certaines personnes, certaines sociétés, certaines compagnies, certains hommes d'affaires ont beaucoup fait d'argent quand la roupie a déprécié. Certains importateurs de médicaments se sont enrichis. Certains sont devenus millionnaires, voire milliardaires. Mais la population mauricienne en souffre et paye le prix fort pour les médicaments. Les diabétiques, ceux qui souffrent de problèmes cardiaques, ceux qui souffrent de problèmes artériels, de cancer, de problèmes de high blood pressure, de gastrique, toutes sortes de problèmes. Tous les médecins ici et tous ceux qui ont de la famille et des amis qui en souffrent, qui doivent aller acheter des médicaments, savent que ce que je dis, le prix des médicaments a augmenté. Qu'est-ce que le ministre des Finances est venu proposer dans ce budget pour avoir au moins écouté la population? Adresser cela avec des solutions. Rien. Rien. Mais je me pose la question, ce n'est pas simplement ça, l'import parallèle. Ce qui était dommage, c'est que quand je parlais d'import parallèle, the doctrine of international exhaustion of rights, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister of Commerce talked about generic drugs. Unfortunately, it is a pity, but let me say to you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that parallel imports has nothing to do with generic drugs. It has everything to do with breaking of monopolies that is increasing the prices and making people of this country suffer the consequences of monopoly. This is what parallel import is all about. This is what the doctrine of international exhaustion of rights is all about. Le gouvernement de ce pays est en possession d'un rapport. Le rapport qui a été rédigé en date de novembre 2023. Et ce rapport, ce dossier qui a été remis au bureau du Commonwealth Secretariat, parle de secteurs très importants. Ce rapport a analysé, Monsieur le Président. Sorry?
Which report?
This report, which I'm tabling,
No, give the title of the
The
report.
title of the report is Socio-Economic Impact Assessment to determine the feasibility of the adoption of the international exhaustion regime for trademarks by the Republic of Mauritius, November 2023. And this document was updated on the 18th of December 2023. The Honourable Minister of Commerce agreed that there was this report and said in this House that it was being studied. How long does it take you to study a report, Mr. Speaker? When we all know there was another report back in 2019 that talks about the same thing. We are a country that's very good at producing reports. A report about the next report, and then another one about the next one. But in terms of action, they speak louder than words. What do we do in order to alleviate the suffering of the people? Et qu'est-ce que je demande au fait, Monsieur le Président? Ce que je demande au gouvernement, c'est d'implémenter l'import parallèle, la doctrine of international exhaustion of rights. Et la raison pour laquelle je demande cela, c'est parce que ce rapport, et là j'aimerais bien que Monsieur le Président, qu'on puisse comprendre cela, c'est dans l'intérêt des consommateurs, l'intérêt des Mauriciens et des Mauriciennes, c'est d'adresser le monopole. Et je donne un exemple. Ce rapport parle de plusieurs secteurs. Le secteur pharmaceutique, de l'automobile, quand on parle d'automobile, mais aussi of spare parts, de pièces de rechange. On parle de food and beverage, on parle de ce qu'on achète pour manger, des marques de produits qu'on importe, qu'on boit. On parle aussi de vêtements, clothing and textile industry, de chaussures. Tout ça, c'est dans le rapport. Et ce rapport se sert de plusieurs autres pays en comparaison. Et c'est un rapport fort intéressant parce que ce rapport vient se baser sur d'autres pays, d'autres expériences. Et il y a plusieurs pays, Monsieur le Président, qui sont utilisés et mentionnés dans ce rapport pour dire que c'est une solution pour l'île Maurice. Et la solution, c'est quoi? Par exemple, il parle de la Nouvelle-Zélande. Les leçons pour l'île Maurice en se basant sur l'expérience in New Zealand. It talks about Trinidad and Tobago, comment il y a eu l'implémentation de ce système pour briser le monopole, pour que ceux qui détiennent le droit à certaines marques n'imposent pas et ne dictent pas les prix. C'est pour ça que les gens de ce pays souffrent. Parce que ceux qui détiennent les marques dictent les prix. Je ne parle pas simplement de produits pharmaceutiques, je parle de tout ce qui nous concerne, tous les Mauriciens, tous les Mauriciennes, les Rodriguais, tous ceux qui habitent dans les îles et passent. Ça concerne tout le monde, de tout âge. Notre vie de tous les jours, ce qu'on achète de tous les jours, ce qu'on mange, ce qu'on porte, ce qu'on a dans nos pieds quand on marche, nos téléphones, nos ordinateurs, ça concerne tout. La voiture qu'on conduit, ça concerne nous tous. Alors ce que je propose, Monsieur le Président, c'est une solution basée sur des expériences qui ont été vécues, tried and tested solutions in other countries. Nouvelle-Zélande, Trinidad Tobago, Danemark, Serbie. Tout cela, en conclusion, les experts disent que l'avantage d'implémenter ce système, c'est de briser les monopoles. Ceux qui sont contre, Monsieur le Président, sont ceux qui détiennent les marques. Ceux qui sont contre sont ceux qui détiennent les marques. Et la solution, ça impose quoi comme résultat? Le ministre des Finances, Monsieur le Président, va me dire qu'on n'a pas de contrôle sur la valeur de notre devise. Ce n'est pas nous qui contrôlons la valeur du dollar. Je ne suis pas tout à fait d'accord en ce qui concerne la dépréciation de la roupie, mais mettons pour un moment qu'on ne peut pas contrôler. Mais il y a quelque chose qu'on peut contrôler. Précisément, je demande, Monsieur le Président, que le gouvernement se concentre sur un sujet sur lequel on a contrôle. C'est quoi? C'est our trade regime, the policy of trade that we have in our country, that we can have control upon. We have to move away from the old colonial archaic system where people who held monopolies and abuse of monopolies in terms of prices, this should be something of the past. There are but a few countries left in the world that adopts a system where monopolies continue because of those who hold exclusive rights to brands. Mauritius is one of the very few left in the world. In South Africa, products like clothes, pharmaceuticals, cars, car parts. In India, in all other small island states, are cheaper than in Mauritius, because in those other countries, the youngsters can buy branded goods cheaper. Profits are not a matter for abuse. Government has chosen policies in the interest of the people and consumers, and not in the interests of business owners who own exclusive right to brands and marks. Is what I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, something so unreasonable? There are people on the other side of the House who speak the same language as brand owners, rich business people. Look at les chiffres d'affaires des importateurs de food and beverages. Regardez les chiffres, Monsieur le Président, le bilan des grands hypermarchés à l'île Maurice, que ce soit le nord, au centre de l'île, au sud, autour de l'île Maurice. Tous ces hypermarchés et supermarchés ont augmenté leur chiffre d'affaires, malgré le fait que les prix des commodités ont augmenté. Comment se fait-il que la profitabilité a augmenté? Simplement, Monsieur le Président, parce que ceux qui détiennent les marques deviennent millionnaires pendant que les consommateurs deviennent plus pauvres. Alors, je ne dis pas les choses comme ça dans le vide. Je me base sur un document que, avec votre permission, I'm tabling today. Parce que la dernière fois que j'ai fait référence à ce document, Madame la ministre du Commerce a parlé de générique. C'est dommage que quand je parle de A, elle répond pas Z. Mais n'était-ce pas l'habitude, Monsieur le Président, de ce gouvernement, qu'à chaque fois qu'on parle de choses constructives, on vous parle de Ramgoolam? N'était-ce pas l'habitude de ces gouvernements qui ont appris par cœur les leçons peut-être délivrées par les gourous politiques? Assassiner, 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 comme il se doit la personne qui est Ramgoolam, former Prime Minister, parce qu'il va être Premier ministre bientôt. C'est ça la raison. Mais moi, je suis devant vous, Monsieur le Président, un simple membre de l'Assemblée nationale. Et je vous remercie pour vos compliments. Vous dites, je pense avec toute humilité, que j'ai été dans cette Chambre maintenant pour mon 4e mandat. Et il est vrai que c'est le dernier discours que je prononce de ce budget, d'un discours budget 2024 d'un gouvernement qui est en partance. C'est mon dernier discours. Mais il est de mon devoir de terminer ce discours en demandant au ministre des Finances. Il prononce son discours en français et il le fait dans un très bon français. Il propose des solutions qui existent dans d'autres pays, des solutions qui ont été testées et qui ont vu qu'il y a succès dans cela, des solutions. Et il y a des solutions crédibles qui sont proposées dans ce document. Et ce que je propose, moi, je le répète, est à l'avantage de tous les citoyens de ce pays. Même s'ils sont ceux du MSM, ils vont profiter de la baisse du coût de la vie. Et la solution du Parti travailliste, MMM et Nouveaux démocrates, c'est de venir de l'avant avec le Doctrine of International Exhaustion of Rights and Parallel Import. C'est un engagement qu'on a pris, c'est un engagement qu'on va respecter, c'est un engagement parce qu'on a comme priorité, Monsieur le Président, la priorité des priorités, c'est de nous assurer que le coût de la vie va baisser et qu'il y aura beaucoup plus d'argent dans la poche de chaque citoyen, pas simplement augmenter artificiellement ce qu'ils ont, mais à la fin du mois, ils n'arrivent même pas à économiser. Alors, ce que je vous dis, malheureusement, le gouvernement en partance n'a pas le courage ou peut-être n'aura même pas le temps d'implémenter ce qu'on dit, parce que pour eux, il est nécessaire de protéger certaines personnes qui détiennent les marques, certains hommes d'affaires que moi je ne connais pas, mais allons dire que d'autres personnes ont d'autres intérêts. Mais pour nous, de ce côté de la Chambre, c'est le peuple qui est notre priorité et cela, on va l'implémenter aussitôt les prochaines élections terminées, quand on sera dans le gouvernement. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will now call.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move for the adjournment of the debates.
So, the question is that the debate be now adjourned. Those in favour say aye, those against say no.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I move the adjournment of the House to Tuesday, 18th June at 10:30 a.m.
Seconded. Question is that the House be adjourned to Tuesday, 18th June 2024 at 10:30 a.m. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. The House sends adjournment matters. Let us adjourn adjournment matters.